Welcome to the Root of It All podcast with Tree, where you will learn new habits for human betterment. We talk about all things related to personal growth, and everything is on the table. Each episode will explore different topics like self-care, mindfulness, goal setting, and more, with a focus on practical tips and actionable advice you can start implementing in your life today. Our goal is to help you become the best version of yourself and live a more meaningful life. So grab a drink, cozy up, take your dog for a walk, or go for a drive. Join us for some fun and meaningful conversations with some amazing humans. Let's grow together.
All right. So,
Okay.
so here we are. So we are in person. I am with John Biggs, Biggs.
That would be me.
Yes, exactly. And he is the morning host announcer at Light FM. That's 92.
Light 92. And that's part of the Light. There's a bunch of Light stations, but we are Light 92.1 based in Brantford.
Awesome.
Mhm.
And so
You've been on the show.
I've been on the show multiple times, and so now you get to be.
Yeah, this is wonderful.
Yeah, so this is like a role reversal kind of thing. Yeah.
Try to stop me from talking.
Yeah. Well, this is gonna be a really fun podcast for everybody to listen to. So welcome to the Root of It All with Tree. And as I said, I have John here with me, and this is gonna be fun because him and I can get into some really good banter, which is gonna be really nice for all of you to listen to.
You also have great timing, great comic timing, you may and have made us laugh out loud on our show.
Yes, and sometimes saying things I'm like, I wonder if they should have bleeped that out or not. And with
Right.
no curse words, but just,
And there is no bleeping, which
yes,
yeah.
which I realized after
which
once
it's out there,
it's yes, to the universe. So one thing we were just talking about before we ended up here is love bombing.
Yes.
So it's so funny because I most recently a friend of mine had that happen to her, and it was unfortunate. It's a really crazy ordeal. And then you just mentioned that it actually happened to you. So do you feel comfortable sharing a little bit about that, or just even explaining what that is? Because I just found out about it.
So to tell you the truth, it's really weird because you are kind of inundated with what you believe to be like real feelings, right? They're coming your way. You're not the kind of person to put those feelings out there. And it's almost like the kind of person who would love bomb you knows that you're not the kind of person who would go into a relationship and represent yourself falsely, but they don't mind representing themselves falsely, like it's part of their.
So what would be an
agenda.
example of so it's that so they're on their own agenda, basically, is
Right.
what you're saying.
Yeah.
So what would be an example of them doing something that what you just described in terms of not really being their own authentic self?
I think for me, it was just a whole lot of what you thought was true feelings and care, and I don't know how else to say it except pumping you up, like making you feel that they have all these feelings for you, and then all of a sudden pulling them all away, like just becoming almost like it's a bipolar love, like it's love and then it's.
So it's almost like you feel like somebody came in and gave you so much love, and it's like you're laying in the bed naked, and then they just leave and they don't come back.
Yeah, except
metaphorically.
Yeah, metaphorically.
It's like,
let's say
that
metaphorically.
happened to me, but let's say metaphorically.
That's right.
Yeah, so it's kind of like emotionally that feeling
Absolutely.
of being left that vulnerable.
Yeah.
Almost.
So you open up, and then all of a sudden they close. Yeah.
And so it's interesting because from a human behavior perspective, it's like anybody that has either been on either side of this love bomb thing, I almost wonder if a person falls truly in love because they've never felt that before, and then they get scared. They end up in fear, so then they pull back, and then all of a sudden they've done so much damage, and then they end up in anger and resentment and make it even worse.
So what we're doing now is giving credence to this person acting this way. Is that what you're saying?
No, me as me as a human behavior expert, I always be curious about what could it possibly
What's their motivation?
Well, or so many things that we do as humans is not on purpose, right? Like, so you and I have had many conversations about being pleasers. I'm a pleaser, you're a pleaser, right?
Subconsciously.
100%,
Mhm.
right? Nobody wakes up in the morning and thinks like, oh, I wonder how many people I can do
Can't wait
this.
to make people happy.
Yeah, I can't wait to get up and just please everybody, and
But
I get exhausted by the end of the day.
I
Yeah.
do that though, from 5:30 to 9,
Yeah.
at Light 92. But that's part of my job is
Mhm.
to, we try to be as light as possible and put
Mhm.
people in the right frame of mind to start their day. That's part of the job. However,
Mhm.
it spills over into your real life too.
100%. And
Mhm.
there's a lot of industries like a hairdresser, a server, even teachers as
Mhm.
well, right? And it's definitely just a coping mechanism. So people are coping in the way of pleasing because from a nervous system perspective, if they don't want people to not like them or let people down.
It's a great non-confrontational way to
Mhm.
experience other human beings.
That's a good way to put it. That's a very good way to put it, for sure. And so going back to this whole love bomb thing,
Mhm.
people generally don't realize what it is that they're doing. But I also want to say it could be a chemical dysfunction in the brain. It could be something else going on.
I
You
agree.
mentioned like bipolar, could be,
Mhm.
maybe,
Yep.
right? So like, teach me about the moment that you kind of, like, did you feel anything in your spidey senses? Like, oh, there might be something that I should watch out for, or did you just like completely surrender into it?
Um, really wanted to completely surrender into it,
Yeah.
but I think there was an age difference that kept me from doing that because your sensibility takes over.
Mm.
However, yeah, I think not in a desperate way, but really wanted to give into it and then saw it for what it was before any emotional damage was done.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's as a matter of fact,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't mind mentioning this, and I don't think she will mind me mentioning this. I talk about these sorts of things with my trainer at the gym,
Yep.
and she's incredibly supportive of me.
Mm-hmm.
She's trying to make me better all the time,
Mm-hmm.
but mostly muscularly. But
Telling you what to do.
oh yeah, so, but that's really changed. That's a wonderful dynamic too,
Mhm.
because now that we're getting to a point where I'm almost where I am,
Mhm.
she's like, I think you can lift a little bit more,
Good.
and just is tweaking how tough she is with me, which is kind of nice. I like that.
Awesome.
But yeah, no, she and I talk about that, and she was the first one that actually said, "I sounds like you're being love bombed."
Mhm.
She was the first one because I'd never heard the term before, like you.
Yeah.
It was new to me, and yeah. So,
What age demographic is your trainer in?
what age demographic is?
Your personal trainer in?
Oh, she's 26.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have a trainer too. Shout out to all the personal trainers out there. They're
Yes,
fabulous.
absolutely.
So my trainer is actually 25, same demographic. So
Right.
these phrases, we're a lot older than that, and we won't say how much older than that we are. Let's leave it at that.
I think
But
my hair color probably gives some of mine away.
well, mine's died, so yeah. Yay for the grace.
Absolutely.
So, so the interesting thing is these wordings, right? Like even my husband and I, we were at this restaurant and the waitress came up and she was saying like, oh yeah, well we have certain rezos tonight and blah blah blah. My husband and I looked at each other and we're like, rezos? And she's like, reservations?
Oh wow.
And I was like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. But it didn't make sense when she first said it.
Of course, yeah.
Right? And even my personal trainer, he's like, I said, oh, what are you doing this weekend? He's like, oh, I'm going to the Cotty. And I go, the Cotty? And he's like, cottage? So there's all these like short
Well, for you and I, it doesn't take any longer to say cottage than it does cotty. So
I know.
Why is that a pet word?
Well, and it's interesting when it comes to human behavior that everybody is trying to recreate the wheel, if you will.
Sure enough.
Like even wide-legged pants are coming back in style, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I just got rid of all of those.
Oh, I can't wait for wide whale corduroys.
They're already out.
Are they out?
They are out. Yeah.
I'll miss that this time around.
Yeah. Watch it next time I'm in studio and I see you wearing a pair, I'm gonna call you out on it.
Yeah, please do. Please do.
Especially if they're like that brown or burnt orange
The
color.
brown ones. Oh my goodness, they were everywhere. Yeah, they were everywhere. There was blue too, though. There was like a really bad blue.
Yes.
Remember those?
Yes, I do. I do.
The orangey, bronzy color, like you just mentioned. Yeah, they were bad.
So one thing I want to talk about too is you used to be in a band.
I did. We used to play this kind of music, actually.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so anyone that's listening to it, he's wearing a Led Zeppelin shirt. So
Mhm.
yeah. And so the thing about music is a very energetic thing. So when it comes to us as human beings, that music can definitely, it can change our mood. It can change the way we're viewing a situation depending on the lyrics of a song.
Mhm.
So what sort of music did you play and what instrument did you play?
I play bass, still do, still have a beautiful California-made Fender Precision bass.
Nice.
I have another as well, but it's it's not even going to get mentioned. But I have two basses. I don't play professionally anymore, but my band, the last band I was in, was we played 52 weeks a year, and where it was at a period of life where just about every bar had live music. This is on the East Coast, and we played in the Atlantic Canada circuit, and we played solidly for 2 years. I played solidly for 2 years with them. They played before and after me. But about 2 years was what I could stand. It's the lifestyle and not the playing. I absolutely love the playing, but the lifestyle is not for me. Just to be on the road that much. Like if I could get back into something where I was recording now, I would love to do that. Where you only played as a normal group, maybe go out on tour and play 17 cities to impact the sale of whatever you were selling, your record. But yeah, to be on the road all that time was it's not a lot of fun. It's not a lot of fun to live that way. I saw this as an opportunity to not necessarily to just vacate the area because when you're on that loop, you unless you're going to get someone who's going to book you gigs across the country and have the wherewithal to be able to support that financially, you're going to be stuck on that loop forever. So this was an opportunity that was offered to us by somebody in California who thought we should sit in front of the president of Capitol Records and maybe a few other people and do what they call a showcase.
Yeah. What year was that?
Oh gosh, 80, 81.
Yeah,
it's a bit of a blur.
and I just want to mention that because there was no cell phones, there was no internet, there was no computers
So
or
it was a phone call to a hotel room in Fredericton.
Yep. Yeah. So a phone call to a hotel room in Fredericton.
Right.
I love it.
He knew where we were, and he introduced himself over the phone. His name was Kim Fowley. He said, "Yo, this is Fowley calling from California." He actually spoke like that, and he made mention of a song that I had helped to write. It was kind of a principal writer on it. I had another friend who had written the lyrics, and we all wrote our own musical pieces for the song. And he was excited about it, and he said the president of Capitol Records thought it was a hit. Now, in simplistic terms, all that sounds very good, but you still have to go there,
go through
have them shake your hand and sign the paper and all that sort of thing. And as it turned out, the guys weren't really interested in doing that. So it was a big disappointment for me. And I had it stuck in my head that you can either not make it here on this circuit or you can not make it out there. Where do you want to not make it? The fact is you would have had that experience and then you come back with that experience and it might help you grow. But we never got to do that. So.
Well, or even give you leverage to the next step. So even if you did get out there.
Exactly. Yeah. It means that someone showed interest and it should buoy you at least to take it another step further.
We teach a lot of our clients that when people are reaching their goal, sometimes they can get discouraged because they're not actually at the goal. But when it's the baby steps of getting there, that's actually going to allow somebody to achieve their goal and that give them the experience of it, right? Like when you were learning how to play bass, it's not like you picked up the bass guitar and you just like busted it out. It took a while. It took mistakes.
You remind me of an email that I got this morning, which basically said, you have to suck at it first.
Yep.
You do.
Yeah.
You don't start by being a professional guitar player. You start by being a kid who wants to be a professional guitar player, and it takes a long time.
Well, and even with these podcasts, like I'm in this little group of other podcast people, and we're all sort of collaborating and just helping each other out and teaching each other about the mistakes that we've made and how we figured it out. because, you know, you do anyone that has done a podcast or even been a guest on a podcast, it's what is perfection? Normally the imperfections is what make it perfect too.
The
Like,
imperfection is might attract people to it as well,
Mhm.
because everyone knows they're imperfect and
Mm-hmm.
they're maybe attracted to the imperfection.
Mhm.
And perfection is, let's face it, impossible.
Well, and I do, so going back to the music thing, a lot of, I remember I was in a recording studio with Fingers 11. Do you
Okay,
know?
finger 11, yeah.
Yeah. And there's a friend, a brother of a friend of mine was recording in his band. I forget his name of that band. That they did fairly well too.
Mhm.
And while we were there, there was somebody else recording, and it was very much alternative music. And you can hear the guy actually singing, and you're just like, what is that? But they have all of these like computer things to change the tone, to change this, change that. And when they played it back, it sounded fabulous.
Right.
So it's interesting, like when people actually, when they're recording and they're tweaking it in that way, and then when they go do something live, it's so different, right? Like, so that's why, like back in the day, what you heard on the record was actually, yeah, it was actually what you're going to hear in real life. So what is there something else that comes to mind of that same sort of example of something back in the day that was so raw that we could appreciate, and that nowadays it's like, well, it's almost like everything is so sort of overly done. And I don't mean AI, but I mean like,
Oh, no, Michael Bublé admits that he uses a tone modifier when he sings.
oh yeah.
He's admitted that he uses it. So he knows that he's not perfect. And
Mhm.
so there are vocalists who've used it in the past. I mean, Cher had a hit called Believe, and
Yeah.
you can hear it all, you can hear
Yep.
the modifying all through the vocal, right?
Yep.
Using it on purpose to affect the vocal in such a way that the vocal now has instrumental quality rather than vocal quality.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of it necessarily, but people are making careers out of it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like people are making careers out of this technology,
Mhm.
right? And so another theme that I wanted to talk about with you is relationships. Like I mentioned to you, I just recorded a podcast with Lisa,
Yes,
your work wife, right?
we have a relationship.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. Like people tune in and they listen to you in the mornings. And so teach me about when you both first met.
Yeah, that was actually, the whole thing was really quite lovely. We spent about a month where I was on the air in Brantford, having just taken over the morning show, and I knew that Lisa was coming.
Mhm.
And our boss at the time, Scott, had a wonderful idea. He thought that we should communicate while she was still in British Columbia and I was there.
Oh, so she was in BC.
Yeah, she was still in BC.
Oh,
She was
wow.
finishing out her last gig.
So were you on the morning show?
I was doing the morning show by myself for
Yeah.
about a month.
So that would be like if that was 6 a.m., that's like 3 a.m. for her
Right, except we
Yeah.
weren't speaking
in real time.
in real time.
Oh,
We
okay.
were like kind of interviewing each other, I guess. And Scott had a whole list of questions, so we would meet in the afternoon, you know, when she had time and I had time, and we would just and Scott would kind of ask us each the same questions, like what's her answer to, what do you think about X, and then I would give my answer, and we would just play with it. And it's kind of like the way we do now, except now we don't need anybody in between us to ask that question. We just come up with the questions, and then, you know, we have this thing that we do at 6:15 about called the pole vault. And I'll just say 27% of people think this. And then she will say, I don't think that at all. Or I do. Oh yeah, that's me every day. And so then
Neat.
we and I just go back and forth on it. Yeah.
Well, and so in hypnosis, we have this thing, we look at it in terms of being in discovery,
Mhm.
right? Because if we're not in discovery or curiosity, then we're in judgment. And that's just how it is that we operate as human beings. So it's cool that this guy, Scott, right from the get-go,
Oh, I thought it was brilliant. Yeah.
yeah, got both of you in discovery about each other through these questions.
Yeah.
And it's so important. So anyone listening to this is like a great thing. If you're like I work with companies that are merging with another company, and that's a great tool and tactic to do with employees, to get to know each other, to be in discovery, and to from the get-go, from right the beginning piece, that they're having that discovery. So even throughout the rest of the relationship, that they can default to that, which is such a great thing.
Mhm.
Because even now to this day, what you said, like the pole thing that you were talking about, you're still doing it.
Yes,
And how long have you and Lisa been working together for?
2 years this September.
Nice.
And when I say it feels longer, that's not an insult to Lisa in any way.
No.
But it feels like we've known each other forever. But
Mhm.
it felt like we knew each other forever from November of that first year, you know.
Awesome.
So September 22 was when we first started to get to know each other. October 22, we started on the air together. And so that 2 year anniversary is coming up. So,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah.
And it's so nice to find somebody that you have that connection with and that you're looking forward to going into work with.
And the wonderful thing is, you know, a lot of people think that relationships have to be about having commonalities.
Mhm.
And yes, we have commonalities, but we also have these things on which we're diametrically opposed, which are hilarious.
Yeah.
And because of the way that we view them.
Mhm.
Because I don't judge her for, you know, wanting to put up a Halloween tree. Can I say that? She has a Halloween tree.
So she's in it really into
Yeah.
Halloween.
This is like end of August, okay?
And is she putting it up like in the studio or at
Oh
home?
no, at her home.
Okay.
Yeah, she's decorated for Halloween already. And last year I was at her house on Halloween, and the Christmas tree was ready to take over. It was standing there, undecorated, but ready to take over as soon as October 31st was over and November 1st hit. So yeah,
Oh my gosh.
this is the time of year for her that she's
It's like something's getting caned off the stage to push the new one out.
close to the beginning
That's
of
so funny.
August. She started talking about fall. And I said,
Wow.
no, we don't want to talk about fall just yet. But yeah, it's her favorite time of year. So,
And the great thing, like even I think I've been on air with you guys at least 5, 6 times, something like that. And I'm actually going in tomorrow morning too.
oh, lovely.
Yeah, so it's just gonna be Lisa.
It's just going to you and Lisa. You know?
Yeah, I know.
So the same
Don't worry,
time.
we won't talk about you.
No,
I know.
no, that won't come. I may have to call in.
You should. You should call in. That would be awesome.
That would be fun.
But the cool thing that I've witnessed both of you is that you have such respect for the other person. So even when you don't agree on whatever it is, you have respect for the other person's side of things. Where a lot of humans, the common tendency is that if somebody doesn't agree, the nervous system ends up in like, oh, I must defend, right? And
Well, look at the world right now.
well, that's my point.
Yeah.
But that's just, it's like humans, it's their nervous system is like must defend,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
Even
My point must be the correct one. Yeah.
yes.
Mm.
Or like I find with a lot of high level executives, because they're so highly educated or they've been brought up must be right, like get it right,
Right.
or they'll be reprimanded.
Mhm.
So even if they're doing something, and not that it's wrong, but the company itself is pivoting, sometimes they'll go down with the ship trying to defend their idea, because from a nervous system perspective, they're like thinking like, oh, I must get it right,
Mm.
where it has nothing to do with right or wrong. It's just like, well, what's going to make the business more money, or what's right for the business, for society, or whatever the product or service is.
Right.
So do you have so tell us the goods on, have you ever either misspoke on air, or
Oh my goodness.
like what would be something you're like, oh my gosh, I
How
can't
many
believe
times? I can't, I don't know, I can think about a specific time. I can think of a specific time I did it when I was in radio school. And I
Mhm.
got in trouble for that because it was in radio school in Halifax. And it was Nova Scotia Institute of Technology. And they were I was the last person to get through the radio course. That sounds terrible, doesn't it? It sounds like I closed it down.
I was the last one to go through the fashion course in Sheridan.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So anyways,
cool. Yeah.
we have that in common.
So you know what they were closing it down for?
What?
Computers.
Oh.
Yeah. So computer technology
Mhm.
was just coming into vogue. And they thought that they were better served by having people learn about computer technology than they were having people go out into the workforce in radio. So all of these things have kind of followed me through my career. It's like people continue to say, oh, radio's dead. It's like, no, actually, it's not. Doing pretty well. But people forget that just because the market is now divided between, social media and radio and television and podcasts and all that sort of thing. It doesn't mean that radio has died. It just means that the pie has changed. Right? There are more players on that pie. That's all. But I particularly like radio because of the nature of it, the live. We could even stop this, and if there were problems here, we could stop it and either start again or edit out or whatever else. With radio, you're just seat of your pants, right? And I love that feeling. I do love that feeling. It was just last week. We were talking about the health of Lisa's mother because she was really sick. I don't know if she's taken a COVID test or not. She hadn't taken one at that point. And I suggested that, it feels like there's an elephant on her chest. And Lisa said, actually on her face. And we just broke up because I thought there's another one of those things that just kind of flies out of her mouth and you never know where it's going to go. So we laughed hysterically for about 3 minutes and then brought it back in. But those are the moments that people like.
Yes. Right. So the cool thing now about radio is that you're getting instant feedback from people that can chime in, whether they're texting in, whether they're messaging in, calling, leaving a voice note, whatever.
Yeah, we got some nice ones on that one.
Yeah, because you literally change people's lives. Whereas back in the day, where even before TV, it was only radio, right? And so radio was where you heard stories, right? People would tell stories and they do all those sounds and stuff like that, where they would just do it and there was no instant feedback. There might be like a production manager or something like that, but it wasn't like somebody like knocking on the door saying, great job, right?
Right. And then we do get that instant, with people laughing about, for instance, that break that I was just talking about.
Yes, which is awesome. But I agree with you. I'm the same person. I love being live. Like I prefer, who was I listening to? I was listening to the Smartless podcast. I don't know if you've ever listened to it.
I do know that.
Sean Hayes, Jason Bateman, and Will Arnett. And the guy, I forget the guy that they were interviewing, but he was saying that he feels more comfortable just singing with his guitar in front of thousands of people. He said, I'm actually more nervous just being interviewed with just the three of them.
Sure. And, the intimacy of that.
Yeah, where I can feel the same way. Like I just did a talk for Good Life. And there was like 50 people and it was fine. Like I was totally fine. But to just talk to just the manager one-to-one, it was very different. In front of all the people, I felt more comfortable, but just the one-to-one. So it's interesting. It's something that I'm going to have to work on.
Well, I think that speaks to people. I say this to people all the time and no one believes me. You don't believe me. I'm shy. I'm kind of shy.
I believe that about you.
Our band opened for Max Webster, for goodness sake. I'm on stage in front of thousands of people and now I speak to thousands of people, but I'm in a little room with my friend.
I'm in a little room
I'm with her. We're okay. I'm safe in here. But, you're spending your life on that seat of your pants thing where you're saying whatever's coming out of your mouth. It's instantaneous. And so there's a great excitement to that. But at the same time, I'm painfully shy when, well, not with you, because you and I have a relationship that goes back a few months. But if it was somebody new on the street or in a store or whatever, and they just happen to recognize you and I would not shut down, but I would clam up a little.
Find a way out.
Yeah, I would clam up. Gotta go get my oranges. Bye.
So don't you find like I'm very much into energies, and you've heard Lisa and I talk about that, like when I'm in studio and when we're off air.
I do agree.
And even when Lisa and I first met, the first time that I was there and you saw the interaction between us and doing a bit of a read on her and just connecting energetically.
Right.
And do you find, like I find, and you tell me what your experience is that when I'm in front of a whole bunch of people, it's like this different energy. Like I feel like I'm just sort of a facilitator, right?
Yes.
That it's like I'm trusting in the information, I'm trusting in the knowledge that I have, I'm trusting that all of the knowledge that I have is going to be exported out of myself and just out there into the ether or in universe for people to listen to learn, to share, even with the podcasts and things like that. Like lots of people, even you did, hey, can you send me a list of questions? Nope.
Yes. No,
We're gonna
that's
kind of be
right.
talking
So
about
what are we going to be talking about?
yes. And I said both. We're talking about relationships and
Yeah.
we're just,
Surprise.
yeah, this is
Yeah.
just a conversation because
Yeah.
I feel, and you let me know what your take is on it, but even when I'm listening to podcasts, I love the back and forth. I hate when it's just like answer this question, this is my next questions, because even sometimes someone will answer the question and then they'll just ask another question as opposed to
Instead
a
of
back
it
and
being a
forth.
conversation.
Yes.
And that's anytime I've done talk radio.
Mhm.
For me, it's about listening to the answer and responding to the answer. I don't look at a list of questions and go, okay, this is next. They answered that. Because there's no relationship there. Right? You're trying to develop a relationship with the other human that you're sitting
Exactly.
with. Right?
And settling into their energy.
Yeah.
Like that's why not once anybody, if you're watching this, I've never looked at, there's no piece of, there's not even paper down.
No, there's not.
Nothing.
There's just this microphone right here.
So this is way more comfortable. Like, correct me if I'm wrong. Like, this is a way more comfortable way of how to interact.
This is how you and I would have a conversation, regardless if there was a microphone or a camera or anything else. So yes, absolutely. I
Yeah.
agree.
I actually almost forgot some part of our conversation that we were even recording this.
Yeah. Well, that's the best way to be. I've had so many compliments over the years when I've done talk radio. That's the best interview I've had in whatever. So it's because it wasn't really an interview. We just started talking and then, we just started gabbing about whatever, right?
So talking about gabbing about whatever, another thing we were chatting about before we hit record is that you did not a voiceover, you were the narrator for
a book. Yeah.
So you said that you auditioned for it, or
yes, I went through a website where they
Mhm.
were looking for somebody to narrate this book and many other things, and I just happened to grab this one. I think it's because I've got a pretty good vocabulary, and there were a lot of words that were difficult.
Okay.
So I probably must have pronounced all of them properly, and they thought, okay, well, he sounds semi-intelligent. This is fairly deep stuff. And the book is called When Time is Short. And it's about the Anthropocene, which is what we're currently in. The Anthropocene is basically when humans are on the earth. That's the period of time that humans are on the earth. And the book is, I don't want to say it's dark, but it's not particularly hopeful about how much longer we're going to be here, because there are a lot of things we could have done back in the 80s to preserve this planet for humans to continue on it. Some people think that we're damaging the earth. Well, we're damaging things on the earth that keep us alive. The earth's going to be fine when we're gone. And that's the point of the book, is that we're the ones who will be gone. We might be gone before the period that's called Anthropocene is over. So, but the earth will just change and other things will, grow out of it. Right?
Well, and we may have been here once before, right? Like
or even more than once before.
Or even more than once before. And the interesting thing is, and this conversation has popped up with many, many people that I've been speaking with. Like, I was telling you about this rescue farm. It's called the Carlisle Creek Farm. That's the website too, if anybody wants to look it up. But she literally, out of her own pocket, and when I sort of got involved, I've been trying to do some fundraiser stuff for her.
Sure.
But literally, all out of her own pocket, she's been taking in horses, donkeys, chickens, dogs, cats. I'm sure I'm missing some, but she has 3 cows. One of the
cows.
Oh my gosh, this one name's Carl. Oh my gosh, just the way that he walks, and he has such an attitude. It's hilarious. But my point is that she talks a lot about us being stewards of this earth. Right.
Yeah.
And so even when anybody goes to the farm and wants to just see the animals, she makes it really clear that you as a human being is going into their space.
Yes, yes.
So it's not like, oh, I want to go see these animals. It's, well, no, you're going into their energy, their space. So she won't even allow, if people don't understand that, then, and she won't let people in and to see the animals. And I think that is the best way to do it.
Getting back to energy.
Yeah.
Animals can sense that.
100%.
So if your energy is accepting and understanding that this is the animal space, they'll know that you feel that. And they'll actually be that much more friendly with you and accepting of you because you are like that way.
Well, and to your point, she was telling me that anyone that has a horse step on them, like on their foot or whatever, they do it on purpose because they can they have total like peripheral, they can see all the way. So for them to actually step on somebody's foot, they did it on purpose. And I was like, oh, interesting. Okay. Like, so it's, and I love like all the animal. I love going there. Again, she, like another company that I work for, we do websites and stuff like that. And we did her website, and she's also a friend. So whenever she needs any updates or wants to ask me questions, like, oh, do you want me to come by? Because it's just such a lovely.
Yeah, because the feeling that you get when you're there.
Oh, it is amazing. Like all the animals. I love animals.
I do agree with the stewardship. And one of the things that in the book that I narrate that the gentleman who wrote it talks about is that there have been some mistranslations over the years about passages in the Bible. And he's very much, he went through divinity school. He's a professor and teaches all of this sort of stuff. But he talks about the fact that we do not have dominion over the earth. And that's one of the things that someone translated out of the Bible as if we do. The earth has dominion over us. Anybody who's experienced any of the rains in Ontario in the month of July, that was angry rain.
Not just rain, tornadoes, typhoons, like, Mother Nature is fierce, right? And the interesting thing about that as well is that when we, like, okay, so to go back to the Bible thing, right? Like, I always kind of joke around and be a little bit tongue in cheek in terms of, like, I have a lot of respect for every religion. And I took actually, I think 1 or 2 years, and I literally did a deep dive on almost every religion. I'm sure I missed some that I didn't know about.
There are many.
There's many, but I
think Ricky Gervais mentions there's like something like 2,800 deities, 2,800 different gods.
Yeah. Well, talk about deities. So I don't know if I ever told you this, but I used to work in the film industry. So from the fashion industry, I ended up doing like some wardrobe stuff.
Right.
And so I ended up like totally by accident getting a lead role in a pilot film.
Oh.
Yeah, and it was a Bollywood film.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we were filming, and the story was about it's called, I think it was called The Taste of Religion, I think maybe, but basically I played a Caucasian woman that was marrying an Indian man, and we could not get pregnant, so we adopted a male child, like a son.
Right.
And then all of a sudden I accidentally got pregnant with twins. So there was all the dynamics of
That's not uncommon either.
Right. And so I was probably at least 20 years ago too. So but we were filming in the Hare Krishna temple downtown Toronto. So if anyone gets a chance to go check that out, it is absolutely beautiful. But the coolest thing was, and this is actually what made me start this deep dive on different like religions, is like the whole cast was all Indian. I was the only Caucasian. Like some of the people working behind the scenes on the set, they were Caucasian. But the whole, like my whole cast, the guy that played my husband, my mother-in-law, and like I was like a kid in a candy store. The whole temple was absolutely stunning. And I'm like, what's this? What's that? Why are they doing this? What's this? And they were so graciously answering all of my questions. And because of that, so if anyone's listening to this that was on that set with me, like I just totally want to say thank you, because you opened a door for me that made it totally okay to be curious about any kind of religion.
Sure.
Because they literally were just, and even the guy that played, and we only filmed, I think, for like a week or week and a half. And the guy that played my husband invited me to his son's wedding, and just, it was just, it was so
that's very open. That's staying really open. That's nice.
Yes, it was. It totally was. And so it's interesting. So back to my initial comment about these religions of people, you're believing something to allow you to either feel safer or secure to some concept. It's also about community, right? Like I have this concept that us in North America, we have all this land, so we built bigger houses to be on bigger land. And now, because we've done that, we've segregated ourselves. Most people are lonely. People that are lonely are in some form of emotion and could potentially overeat. Hence, the obesity pandemic that we almost have in North America. Like, yeah. So
I'm saying almost. Is it really almost? I think it actually is a obesity pandemic. I think we're.
Yeah,
I
I
think
was
we're in
just I was just in the U.S. Not to talk down about the U.S., but yeah, it was like pretty crazy.
It's worsening there first before it worsens here. Is that your impression?
Say I don't know. I can't. I don't have actual stats or
But from an
anything,
observational.
yeah, just from where I was in the U.S. But it's interesting the world that we live in, and it's great that there's people like you that can really touch so many people every morning with just the positive outlook or your sarcasm.
A little. I might have a little, or at least I might say something and I won't say a word and just kind of look at her and take that pause. And everybody knows what that pause means now. It's like, really? So it's one of those things where it's the magic happens in the room and that you can never predict. That's the beauty of, I think, the combination of the two of us is that there's just something that happens that is not shocking, but just completely unpredictable. You just never know from one day to the next what that moment's going to be. We can go through a whole show and not have one of those moments as far as that goes, but still the camaraderie, for lack of a better term, is evident. It's palpable.
And so if you were to pick anything else, what like to do for a living, what would that be?
Playing a band.
Playing a band?
Yeah, go back to that. Go back to recording music, writing songs, and that form of expression, I think, is probably my favorite form of expression.
I think you'd be an awesome songwriter because your vocabulary is very vast. And the way that you articulate things is fantastic. Like and that's why your voice is so good too, because you have the vocabulary, the storytelling. You give good visual cues for people that are listening to you. So even from a human behavior perspective and using like the mind imagination, that those words and the cues that you give, and using the word trigger, but they ignite.
Yes, I know. Trigger has become a bad word.
Trigger's like a trigger word, I know.
Yeah. Remember when it was just a horse?
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah.
There's a lot of people who won't remember that, but
Yeah, probably.
Generational.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so songwriter, playing in a band, would you do you see yourself picking up a different instrument or singing?
I think probably singing. I think I'll always have a first love of the bass guitar, and I can even tell you where that came from, which is, to me, is a really sweet story. I lost my mom when I was 13. I had to become a more, say, legitimate, a more out front member of the household. My sister did the cooking and I did the cleaning, and so the dishes became, I think my sister dirtied every pot in the house for every meal, but that may have just been my perspective. But so while I was cleaning up after dinner, like this is a kid who I didn't go out and hang out with my other friends until everything was clean in the house. So while doing that, had a radio in the kitchen. I still own this radio. It's very important to me.
Is it one of those little silver ones with the dial on it, with the antenna?
A Philco AM radio. I will send you a picture of it.
Yeah.
Which you could even put on this if you want, so we can have a reference. But I think it's funny that the radio was what led me to bass guitar, because that particular radio, this little black radio, Philco radio, had the bass response that allowed me to hear. In Halifax, you heard a lot of Motown music. We played a lot. The radio
Oh.
stations there played a lot of Motown music. There's a
This
big,
would be like 75-ish.
oh, even earlier than that. So when I really started doing dishes was before my mother was no longer on the planet. So 10, 11, 12, I was in the kitchen as well. So 67 through to about 75,
Nice.
probably. And so those years, that music, the bass response from that radio was responsible for me hearing it and going, I really like that instrument. I think if I
Nice.
was going to play one, that's the guy I'd want to be because those are the sounds I want to make. And so that's where it came from, was doing dishes in the kitchen of my house.
Awesome. What great memories.
Yeah, falling in love with that, just falling in love with it. And that's why I still have the radio.
I have one memory that well, not similar, but not similar. So, my mom's boyfriend used to be a DJ back in the day.
Mhm.
So he had like cases and cases of the 45s,
Oh, yes.
right?
Yeah.
So when I was younger, like I started to sew when I was like 6 years old. I was very overweight and my sister was thin. So any hand-me-downs, I'd like cut the seams open and add more fabric just so I could
Of course.
so I
Yeah.
didn't look like a stuffed sausage. Like, and while I was doing that, I'd be playing all of this music. So even as I got older, like even now, I know a lot of songs
Mhm.
that isn't part like from my generation.
Not
growing up.
necessarily your era. Yeah.
Yeah, like even I know a lot of people growing up, like me being a teenager, New Kids on the Block. I'm not Backstreet Boys, but like just was never into those because I was
That would be Lisa.
oh yeah yeah. Well, I was into like Sam Cooke and
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Linda Ronstadt,
How could you not?
Kate Bush, Lulu. I don't know if you know Lulu.
Yes, Lulu, of course. To
Yeah.
Serve with Love. Yeah.
Yeah, to serve. Oh, I
Yeah.
like so that's all the stuff that I really shouldn't have grown up with, but I did because I just
I did. That would be some of the stuff that I heard on the radio. It would be.
well, I
Like,
love
To
the
Serve with Love is
yeah.
you gotta love the production values on some of
Yes.
this stuff, right?
Yes.
It's the sound that's coming out of that radio going, my goodness, they took some time to make this sound just right before they released it, right?
Because there was no technology.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of the Kate Bush and I loved like even and I guess maybe that's what I love about doing the podcast is because I've always loved biographies.
Mhm.
Like any books that I've ever read is generally a biography. Probably that's why also I love humans. Like I'm just fascinated about
Yes, you do.
stories of humans.
It's one of your most admirable qualities is how much you love humans and humanity.
I do. I
Yes, you do.
genuinely do. I think it kind of drives my husband nuts sometimes. But
Well, the fact that I can sit here and talk to you about narcissists who have hurt me and you give them, well, maybe it's because, you see their,
Yeah.
right? You see that there's some kind of reason that made them that way, right?
well, because I gotta believe, and I think all of us as humans should have this belief that all humans are trying to be the best human that they could be.
Right.
Right? I mean, unless there's something severely going wrong,
Mhm.
then that's unfortunate, right? And it sucks. And, people do go to prison, people do bad things. But if we're all walking around in fear, then we're not leading the life that we need to be leading for ourselves.
Mhm.
So it's so important that we're truly eliminating any kind of fear. I mean, we're living in a world, we're not being chased by lions and bears or anything like that.
You make me think about something that I saw once, and this may not sound related to this, but to me it is. There's
Yeah.
a CIA, a female CIA operative, former CIA, who released a video about how we view terrorists as bad people.
Mm-hmm.
Terrorists don't see themselves as bad people.
No.
They see themselves as defending something very important to them.
Yeah.
That they feel that they're doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a CIA operative who is, passing this information and saying, you got to understand that everybody thinks they're in the right here. Like everybody thinks they're in the right. So when you talk about, like you say, there's a brokenness, maybe.
Yeah. Well, and it depends, like look at us here in North America.
Mhm.
Like there's not a lot of shame in North America. A lot of shame comes from other cultures that are heavily in religion.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So when I did that deep dive in religion, I forget what religion this is, but part of the culture is that when a child, and I don't know if it's male or female or both, but when the child's around, I'm going to say 2, 3 years old, that the mother would carry the child to whatever the religious representative was, and then they had a knife, and then they put the knife down on the middle of the child's head, in the middle of the forehead, and depending on where the blood went down or how it happened would mean how blessed the child was.
Really?
So can you imagine what that, like, but to your point, in terms of like, that's just what they did. And so if somebody didn't have a scar, then they would be reprimanded. But even um, I don't know the word trauma, but like they can't unexperience that no matter what the age is.
Right, yeah.
So it's very interesting. Even people like from other cultures will look at North America and look at the show Fear Factor, right? Like that people volunteered to go on a show and do all this like weird stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And yet we're judging other people for doing things where, well, what's right or what's wrong? It's all
It's
perspective.
the openness has, like, there are people like you and I who have welcomed openness, right?
Yep.
And I'm sure you would, if you're like me, you would like to see more people that way. That just be open to everything and try to understand everything as it comes in. Don't judge it before it gets there, right? And we live in a society that wants to judge first. It has changed how you approach what you say when you open your microphone, too. Like you have to be careful because there are people who will attack you on just about everything. It's become part of the culture in North America for sure.
Well, and I think that's part and parcel of like social media, because people like gave people a platform. They could say whatever they want, do whatever they want, and just be hidden.
Yes, and stay in their lonely place, as you were talking about earlier.
Right.
That's one of the things that has increased loneliness in the world, is the fact that you can stay by yourself and throw those things out there and never have to leave your room.
Yes.
You know?
So maybe we should end up doing another podcast, because we should probably wrap this up, as I've taken up way more of your time.
Well, I don't mind. See, I like content.
So, but maybe we should do another episode, and because a lot of these themes and even just chatting with you, I think it's extremely relatable for people listening to this as well.
Sure.
So is there anything?
Let's do a bunch.
Don't tempt me. It just means you'll have to come down and visit again.
Absolutely.
So is there anything else that you want to say to the people listening?
Well, I want to tell you about the fact that I just started this amazing relationship. Speaking of relationships, the person doesn't live here, but it doesn't matter. And it's just kind of blossomed into something amazing.
Awesome.
The weirdest thing is that we were in the same rooms and in the same circles for years, starting back when I was playing in bands and continuing on through radio. She was associated with bands, then she was associated with radio, and we were in all those same rooms, but different. For some reason, we never met.
Wow.
And we became, because of our association with other people, became friends on Facebook. Now, don't you find Facebook is kind of losing its luster lately?
I don't know. I'm not on very often. I do like it.
Explains yes, I know. I love your pictures of your early morning.
Oh my, yes.
Your dog.
Yes.
That stuff.
Yes.
But she and I just like both very open. Both have had all kinds of negative experiences in our lives.
You guys will start writing songs together.
Wow. That's a good point.
Yeah, I think that would be a really cool way for both of you to connect, like even more, because if the way that you're connecting, so here's the deal, and this is cool for everybody to learn this. If people, when they meet, right, if they're continuously trying to please each other, they're not actually having their needs met.
We've spoken about this. She and I have spoken about this already. Yeah.
So good, because the truth is that when you're building something together, it actually, your needs are being met in all kinds of different levels, right? And that it sounds like that you're already very respectful.
Wide open too.
Yeah, which is great. But I do get a sense that you guys are going to be writing together. Like, because I feel like for you, you very much need somebody to play off of. You can't do it yourself. So it seemed like you know, for your weight loss goals, you had me, you had your personal trainer, right? That you need, that you thrive when you have sort of not a muse, but like you have somebody to come along for the ride.
Because I otherwise internalize everything, right? I'm just one of those people who will take all those thoughts and move them inward if I don't have them.
If you don't have anybody else to put, yeah. So we are all gonna look out for the music that you're gonna make with this beautiful human being.
Thanks.
Yes, and I'm super excited for you.
Thank you.
So we're gonna have all of John's links and everything else where you can listen to him, find him, and all that stuff in the show notes. But yeah, we definitely need to do this again.
Thank you. I would love to.
Yeah.
Well, folks, that's a wrap for today's episode of The Root of It All with Tree. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. But before we go, I just wanted to remind you that you can follow us on social media. You can find us on Facebook or Instagram. And we will be posting motivational quotes and behind the scenes content that you won't want to miss. You can always sign up to come live while we're filming this, or even join us online through Zoom. We always offer open question and answer after each episode that we don't record, so it's all private, but you can get more involved. So sign up for free at businessgrowthresults.com, and we're going to cover all kinds of different topics that you're not going to want to miss. And if you're looking for that one-on-one guidance or help, be sure to book a free screening. You can do that at burlingtonhypnosis.ca or call 905-634-4777. And finally, you can catch our podcast on all major podcast platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. So be sure to subscribe and never miss an episode. Thanks for listening.